know, what is the right test to test soil health? And I think Mark and everyone here that's done some soil has a relationship or a interaction with Gupta. And so I'm actually more about ecology, and I actually look at invertebrates in the farming systems and what they're indicating might be going on with the soil health or the plant health. And so to me, pests are just an indicator that there's something going on. So I like to look at the bugs. But the first thing you do is you're taught is never work on soil invertebrates, because it's hard work, because it involves a shovel. This shovel has seen a lot of work, not by me. One of the things we're looking at is anybody that's done any work with Christine Jones is you look for dreadlocks. That's right, isn't it? Dreadies? Dreadies are the go? Yeah, right. I'll just look at the dreadlocks on the roots. So again, if you actually look in there at the roots, and how well do they actually hang on to the soil? Not very great, thank you. I'll take that comment on. That's a fantastic scientific description, much better than from the MC. But the other thing is we dig up and we're looking for pores in the soil, and Jeff will show us later how to texture it and all that. But we're looking for pores and macropores and all those wonderful things that were talked about, but that aggregation so that the water can actually infiltrate into the soil. So to look for earthworms, I much prefer using a ring like this, put into the ground, and then we tip some water in it and see how long it takes for the water to infiltrate in the ground. And of course, when we talk about changing climate, and particularly in a winter monsoonal weather pattern, when you get intense rain, is you want it to go into the ground, you don't want it running off. That's fairly, everyone's trying to achieve that. You know, a lot of this management that we're talking about, grazing management, those sorts of things, is we want the water to infiltrate into the soil, and we want to retain or increase, what was it called? Organic matter. So the carbon that matters to help actually retain moisture in your farming system so you can grow plants for longer. And then we can maybe address that concern in the room of, oh, well, if you have succession plants grow over the summer, they're stealing the water, then our winter crop has nothing to grow. But if we can increase that infiltration rate, and we can get more water into the bucket where it won't evaporate, not into the dam up in the hills where it will evaporate, we can do that. And so one of the things here is bucket of water, 0.1 of a square metre roughly. So if I put 1 litre of water into 1 square metre, that's the same as 1 mil of rainfall. So therefore, in this area, I'm putting 10 mil of rainfall. I've got actually 5 litres here, but I'm also interested in the bugs. This is just looking water going into the soil. That's pretty boring, isn't it? So we're actually going to tip a bit in. We might have to stir that up a bit. Not very good at stirring today, Mark. Mark, maybe you can show us and use the stirrer. There you go. Hey? Look at that, collaboration between the lab and the field. So for everybody that's going to go home and do this, one dessert tablespoon of mustard per about 5 litres is usually enough. And so what we do is Mark, you can actually tip that one in that ring, because we have got 2 rings. Jesus, Mark, you're doing a lot today. Geez, he's a good TA. And we're just tipping that in there. Has somebody got a clock to time this? Somebody is timing this. So you can actually come over and have a look at it infiltrating into the ground, because that's what we want to do, particularly this very dry soil with all that rain last night. Is that water actually going in? Well, yeah, I'm getting better actually at getting the rings into the ground. So what are you observing? Anything? Is this good infiltration rate? Is it bad infiltration rate? Where's the soil scientist, Amanda?
Well, you've got air bubbles, so it's going down and in there, and it's quite a tight looking sandy loam, so it's definitely slower than you would expect from the sand.
Yes, definitely slower. So while that's happening, the other latest and greatest toy I've got as part of this Sanford project is the microbiome kit, because we're going to know all about our fungal bacterial ratios that was being talked about earlier, and we're actually going to understand them. So we've taken some of this wonderful soil and we've got the required amount, and then we just pop it in here. Comes with a little kit. So I've already put the reagent in there. And of course, because I can't follow any instructions at all, it was wonderful. I just get told what to do now. It's much better.
Hi, Michael. I've just missed the cooking show bit about the mustard.
Hey?
I've missed the cooking show bit about the mustard.
Excellent. So the mustard is put in there as an irritant to try and bring anything that's living in the soil to the soil surface, so I don't have to dig for it. And as rightly has been said by soil scientists that know way more about this stuff than I do, is of course the methods are, well, should you be using mustard, you won't get all the species. Should you be using detergent? I mean, we have the same thing with pitfalls of pitfalls. I quite often put pitfalls in the ground and let bugs run along and fall into them. What do I put in there? You know, all these things is any method has its limitations. I think was said this morning, eDNA, it's the latest thing to understand everything that's in your soil. Is it really? It has its limitations. Anything we do has its limitations. Again, the two different grazing systems. And I think this is where we've actually got to choose the tools that help us take a recipe but actually be master chefs and actually turn it into a magnificent working functional thing that works on our farm. And that's really important, that farmers this afternoon are actually going to talk about how they've taken the recipe but they've actually become master chefs and they've come up with something that works for them. And I think that's really important. But back on this, I better get this going because I'll run out of time again. Oh, Mark's not following me today. I can take as long as I like. Oh, that's right, we've got to have lunch. So that's an amount of water, and that's RO water. And they've got a YouTube video of how to use that. So RO water is they've taken all the chlorine and cement out of it. And no, it's actually an RO machine. I do occasionally go in and annoy the soil scientists. So I'm stirring this for 30 seconds. Yeah, exactly. And I think what we found is the rainwater is okay, but the water that comes out of the pipeline, particularly once you get over to Minapa, it has a huge effect on it. It actually looks completely different. So again, there's stuff going on, so it is important what water you use. But this test here, to me, is something that's very simple that farmers can do because it takes 20 minutes. So again, the person that's timing the water infiltration, has the water gone in yet? No, so we've got no earthworms yet, so I'm going to have to keep talking. That's great. So that's been stirring now for about 30 seconds. So somebody's got to actually measure this for 20 minutes. So that means I've got another 20 minutes to talk. That's fantastic. But we won't do that. We'll give you the result of this after lunch. So we'll just let that sit there for 20 minutes. Yeah, okay, and then we'll do a test. So again, results Mark was talking about. Oh, Mark's onto it. Geez, you're a good TA. So, hey, yeah, he did. He did a very good job. And the other important thing is everybody's used to a pH test that you can buy from Bunnings that Ciro developed. It is one of the best and easiest tools because then when you, say, take your dig stick that's just here in front of us, a very simple tool, and we've gone down, we can actually take bits of soil out and we can use the pH test to also look at the pH on the soil surface, but how it's going down to depth. So I just use this simple dig stick, again, because it's simple and easy. But back to the microbiome test for the grape growers. Again, deep-rooted, we're expecting more carbon at depth, and so part of the project we're looking at carbon cycling over a 12-month period. And what's happening in the vineyard is at the moment is we've got quite low carbon levels at depth and they're greater at the surface, and that's very much matching the results we're getting from the microbiome test. Where we did see a response in the carbon done in the lab, the microbiome test also showed us there was a greater amount of carbon where we had that mixed species cover crop compared to the fallow. Again, this is only taking it the soil surface too, not at depth. And again, should we be doing it all the way along that to account for it? I think carbon accounting, we go to about 30 centimetres is the golden standard. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go down to a metre.
Yeah. Go down to a metre.
They were recording it, but they're collecting it down to a metre in
Yeah.
case we change the standard.
Yeah. Exactly. So again, as there's all these different processes, what does it really mean? I think it comes back to plant health and how the plants respond to that soil, and whether it's a healthy soil means whether you've got a healthy plant, and then you actually start seeing some responses to your bugs. So the classic one is we know about lucerne flea in pastures and crops. Lucerne flea is found at certain soil types. Yep. Yep. And so when we actually sent some sap analysis away where we collected new leaves and old leaves, but particularly in the new leaves where we saw high aluminium, or actually any aluminium, because they don't actually know what these sap tests mean when it comes to aluminium, is what we saw with the aluminium is we had aluminium in the plant saps, and someone said, oh, you didn't wash your hands properly, Nashy. You've contaminated the sample, but it comes out of the sap. They're actually measuring the blood rather than the actual tissue, the whole plant material. They're only measuring the blood in it. And I said, but hang on, that outlier there, that was where we had lucerne flea damage. So this year, we've actually, the agronomists are saying, oh, we're getting some damage, and we've been doing some tests, and it holds fairly true that where we're getting aluminium in the sap is where we're seeing the lucerne flea damage, which then goes back to soil type. Those are the soil types that seem to have a problem with aluminium. The aluminium is actually blocking some of the other elements that you might need to, say, make the plant more resilient, what Colin was talking about, more resilient to pests and diseases. So we know boron, and I think Tom will talk about this, but boron, manganese, sulfates and molybdenum are all important for turning nitrates into proteins, so therefore you have less insect attack. So we're starting to use some of these tools to help particularly you guys manage threats and understand what's going on. So not only are we looking for earthworms, freaking disaster, no earthworms yet. So after 10 minutes we should get about 30 or 40 earthworms per shovelful. That was the old English rule. Yeah. Yeah. So if we're after a healthy soil here, how healthy are these soils? No. So if we actually go back to what was being talked about earlier, the interaction between biology, chemistry, and the physical stuff, I mean, Jeff, now, how are we going for time? 13 minutes in, right. So do you want to do the soil test now, Jeff? Understanding the physical characteristics of why this soil mightn't be very biologically functional. And that leads me on to, of course, have we got one?
We got one or something, but it wasn't a worm.
Oh, can I have a look?
No, it wasn't a millipede.
Oh, no, that's a cutworm. Oh, God, I'm in trouble now. That's possum food. Yeah, I reckon he's looking a bit greasy. Yep, that's a cutworm. So again, I quite often use this as a party trick when everyone says to me, oh, we can't find any slugs in our paddock. We're in the middle of New South Wales. We don't get slugs up here. And then you do that, and then all the slugs come up out of the ground, and then all of a sudden you look brilliant, and you've just sold a heap of bait. It's fantastic. But, yeah. Sorry. Oh, there's no sponsoring deal today. Bugger it. But the point with it is there's another one. Got an introduced earthworm. Hey?
What do you mean introduce?
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So you pass that round. You can hang on to it. Oh, Ruby's getting rid of it as quickly as possible. But I think it is important to understand those interactions between everything, because you're all fantastic ecologists. You just don't call yourselves that. But if you're interested in what's going on, would you like some more noise?
I've got some organised.
Right, he has. Oh, look out. So yesterday we actually did the same thing, but we did it in different soils where there was a lot of organic matter on top. And we saw a very different infiltration rate, and we saw much bigger and fatter earthworms up at the Clare Valley, because the Clare's always been better than Barossa at making wine. So again, we get better earthworms at Clare. Oh, geez, that's a fantastic soil, that. And the other thing is, why are we interested in the soil and the soil biology? If you look at this bryophyte, this moss sitting on top, but there are many things. You can hang on to stuff. You can take your hands out of your pockets. But the thing is that crust on the soil surface, that biocrust, is very important also in natural systems in slowing water down and getting more infiltration. And where you've got particularly, we talk about, well, you won't find any earthworms here, because I'm going to imprint on this now. You only find in sandy soils in a desert, because South Australia is a desert, it's so dry, is you only find white ants and ants, Hemiptera, because they are the earthworms of the mallee. And so where you have good function with termites in Western Australia, Theo Evans published a paper, there was about a 20% increase in wheat yield with nothing else done except better infiltration and better sequestration of that organic matter into that soil. The other thing we find is where you've got white ants is you seem to encourage that biofilm, you don't get red-legged earth mites. Because the red-legged earth mites, when they hatch out, once it gets cold enough and we've got enough rain, so I think it's below about 16, 18 degrees, 5 mil of rain, round here usually about May, when they first hatch out, they don't know exactly what they feed on. They know everything about red-legged earth mites, but they don't know what the hatchlings feed on. The hatchlings all die where you've got active white ants. And we think that's something to do with that surface crust. So that surface crust is actually really, really important. So there's a whole heap of stuff that we still don't know what it's about. We can do a whole heap of genetic testing, but we don't know the function of a lot of these things in the soil at what we have this esoterical health thing, soil health, what does it mean? At the end of the day for me is you guys just need simple ways. Well, what's the simple way I'm going to make more money? So addressing a question in the room earlier about if I let succession plants grow over the summer, I'm going to have no moisture for my winter crops. If you've got good function and infiltration, maybe that's not the case. The first thing you need to do is monitor and look and use simple tools and record it over time. You know, one guy over on EP, he sows sorghum. It is the worst looking sorghum ever because it never grows because it never rains over there. Sometimes it does. He has these spindly little sorghum plants. That feeds his termites and he's really happy with that in his system. So he's now putting sorghum out over his wheat, harvesting it, and what comes up, but he keeps it cheap. But it works, and that's because he's trying to feed the biology in his system. So back to our system and what we're trying to address. Jeff, I'll let you take them. You go. So there's some very simple things that you can do, but the most important take-home message, this is a GRDC event, isn't it, take-home messages, is actually monitoring over time. So go back, look at your management, look at how quickly things are changing. You know, rainfall is a limiting factor in this environment, so things don't always change quickly. You're working with a dynamic system that not only changes monthly, but changes yearly over a long period of time. So with that, any other questions?